Hello and welcome to this online presentation. My name is Amanda Tweed and I am going through, I've created this to keep this as simple as I can, going through the human experience. Now you'll notice that it says part 1. There is also part 2 to this video and I think it's the second part. So I hope to make this as short as possible without cutting corners and keep it as simple as possible. Simplicity is the key. So the foundation is always who we are, because without us, nothing exists. So this next slide is an attempt to show that we are no thing, non-conceptual being. Nothing can be said about that blank paper. If we liken this to an ocean, the ocean only knows that it's an ocean. It doesn't know anything else. It just doesn't know nothing else. Ocean only knows ocean. And the ocean is the stillness. It's the absolute. Okay? That's the ocean. Now I'm going to introduce you to a wave on the ocean, and we can call the wave awareness. And the reason why I choose to call the wave awareness is because awareness can be aware of its true nature, being aware, and it can also be aware of everything that arises in the ocean. It can be aware of a fish. It can be aware of a shoelace. So its very nature is being aware. That's all it is. It's aware. But it can be aware of itself, which is the ocean, or it can be aware of that which arises. So I've simplified that. So that is awareness and non-conceptual being, how I like to put it. I mean, words don't do any of it any justice. Now, we're going to talk about the instruments to have the human experience, which is called the human mind. Before we can have an experience, we need to use the mind. And I have picked 3 aspects of the mind. Now, I've heard David Bingham talk about these a number of times, and I kind of figured out that this is how it goes, just from your own demonstration. So the mind I've split into three pieces, but as you can see, they're not equal. The huge part, the part that is containing 3/4, is unity consciousness. That is 62.5% of the mind, and its predominant frequency is intelligence and love. So intelligence and love governs 62.5% of the mind. The next one down is where you can see alignment with order and 25% structure. That part of the mind is where we can organise timetables and appointments, and we can do all sorts with that part of the mind, because that is the mind that we use to structure. So it doesn't really do anything apart from structure. It's the structure mind. And it makes up 25% of the whole human mind. And the last part, the part that says lack and limitation, 12.5% of unlove, that is the part of the mind that is connected to the dualistic server. And it's because the mind is connected to 2 servers. So you've got intelligence and love, which is unity consciousness. And it's also connected to lack and limitation, which is what David calls the demiurge. Jesus Christ calls Satan God of this world. But the mind is connected to both servers, and then there's another part of the mind there that has nothing to do with intelligence and love, nothing to do with unlove, and that's why it's just structure. And this is why I know I've met people that have been predominantly functioning in lack and limitation. They have a lot of things that happen to them. However, they can be really structured, very structured. They can get their home structured. So the structure mind is kind of available. It's available wherever we are functioning from, whether it's being aware of intelligence and love, or being aware of intelligence and fear, which is called unlove. So the next slide I want to show is the human intellect has something called intellectual faculties, and there are 6 of them. And what I normally do is list all 6 faculties, but what I've come to realise is the 6 faculties do still remain, and I can go over them. However, there are 3 faculties that if this is not understood, they can become extremely personalized. They can become extremely personalized and can cause a lot of problems. Things like, if we've experienced something happen in the past and it wasn't very nice and it keeps happening, or, it was a really big happening, we call that trauma. And that's what that 12.5% of the mind tends to cling onto, is past and future, which is where trauma lives. So by understanding that the human intellect, which has 6 faculties, there are 3 faculties that have the potential to be personalized, and there are 3 faculties which are power. I may do another video on that one day. I just wanted to get into the 3 aspects of the mind, really. So if we look at the universal mind, which is unity consciousness, the 6 faculties are used or experienced completely different from intelligence and love. Now, I'm going to read the 6 faculties out: perception, memory, imagination, reason, intuition, and will. So those are the 6 human faculties that are available to us human beings. When awareness peeps into the human game through the 62.5% of the mind, those intellectual faculties change from perception to awareness, memory to remembering, imagination is vision, reasoning becomes recognition, intuition, and divine will. If awareness adopts and invests in the 12.5% of the mind, then it will experience personalization. So the lens of perception will be highly personalized. You and me, us and them, bad and right, good and this and that, you won't be able to come out of it. And then it'll be memory. Oh yeah, you did that to me yesterday. And then it'll be imagination. I don't want that to happen in the future. And that's a loop. It's a self-contained loop, and it's just constantly going. The only way out is to step off, come out completely. Some schools teach you to make that positive, that it cannot. Its very nature is unlove. Its very nature doesn't know anything about being positive. What is actually being asked of us is to unplug from there and come over to the 62.5% of the mind, intelligence and love. That's where gratitude is. That's where happiness is. The very nature of unlove is unlove. So we just step away from it, just leave it alone. We don't have to do anything with it. So the first amendment, awareness becomes aware of bliss. Now, awareness is aware of itself, and then awareness becomes aware of bliss. That's the first amendment. What I should have done here is I should have introduced the 5 filters of the human experience. David Bingham has he's been fantastic in pointing people just to this model so that they can understand the human experience. And on David's channel, he does have a playlist called Themes of Knowledge. I highly recommend that you listen to that, because he talks about the 5 koshas, he talks about the yogas, he talks about frameworks that we can use to understand the human game. So I'm just going to back up. We've got non-conceptual awareness, and we've got non-conceptual being and awareness aware of itself. So we've got the ocean and we've got the wave. Then we've just had a look at the 3 aspects of the mind, how they stand on their own, and then how they can affect the human intellect. Okay, now we're going to look at the 5 filters. So you've got the non-conceptual being, you've got the awareness, now you've got the human intellect and the mind, and now the awareness peeps through the mind and it can travel through the 5 filters. So I hope this is making sense. So the first amendment, awareness being aware of itself, is the simplest form. When it's not being aware of itself, it can turn and it can become aware of bliss, which means that awareness is now looking at that 62.5% of the mind. So it's not looking at itself anymore. The wave is not looking at the wave. The wave is now looking in the mind, and it is aware of awareness of bliss. So establishing the frequency of bliss is when awareness is aware of itself. It then becomes aware of bliss. And one of the ways to establish the frequency of bliss is to visit that frequency during the day. You don't have to set time apart and go into a meditative state. You can be doing the dishes, you might be combing your hair, you could be just gently walking, and it's just to recognize the very presence of this moment, recognize the now, and then bliss arises. It arises, it's like a secondary, it's like a byproduct, but it's very, very subtle. But the awareness is no longer aware of non-conceptual awareness or attributeless being. It's now aware of the frequency of bliss. And because the mind is a tool, the mind learns and unlearns by repetition. So if you want to establish the frequency of bliss, it's to do it over and over and over until it is over. It becomes established, and then you will not be able to remember what it's like to complain or have any unlove, because you've established a frequency of bliss. It's worth knowing that we know ourselves via contrast. So what tends to happen is a lot of us were programmed into believing that 12.5% of the mind, and the believing is part of the game. So it's the conditioning. There's a condition, a pattern that says, I'm lacking in this area, and we tend to find that it's very frequent and it feels normal. It feels that normal that we don't question it. And so when we start to establish the frequency of bliss, then it becomes obvious the contrast. Bliss is a beautiful frequency, but then the quote unquote normal doesn't feel that good anymore. Oh my God, we can see a massive contrast. And that's where the integration starts to take place. But it is understanding how to integrate that effectively, because it can be done effectively. Yeah. So the next slide is awareness, aware of wisdom, which is still in the 62.5% of the mind. That is where awareness, again, it can be aware of itself, and then it becomes aware of wisdom, which is intuition. It becomes aware of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. It's maturing. And establishing the frequency of wisdom is where one of the ways that I think is probably the most simplest way. Again, it's not a practice. It just requires a clear seeing, is to depersonalize the human experience, just so that we can see that when we become personal, I, me, my, when we become impersonal, you can feel the shift of energy. It feels much lighter. It's like, God, this feels so much better. And it's just so that we can see the difference that, when we are impersonal, this is the experience that we can have. When we become personal, this is the experience we can have. So now we know that if we're in our home and we're walking around our home and there's no one to talk to, then we are in impersonal being. It's only when we conversate with somebody and they say, "Oh, how are you?" and you say, "Yes, thank you, I'm really good." We are using the I, but we're using it lightly. We're not heavily invested, because we are establishing the frequency of wisdom. By the way, establishing these frequencies, they don't take any effort at all. It's just recognition, but it's understanding that some of us have had heavy programming into apathy, resistance. So even though we can do this and it feels amazing, we try to do it, or we plan to do it later, and resistance has kicked in. But because resistance feels normal, we just distract ourselves. "Oh, I can't be bothered," or we'll do something. It's just the programming. So this can be overcome very quickly with the right structure, and with a right mentor or accountability partner. It can be overcome very, very quickly. Yeah, in a space as short as 3 months, with somebody who's mastered the mind, who's overcome it. They show you what to do in the space of 3 months, and you'll be completely free. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So, as I've said, the bliss and wisdom, they cause something called the causal realm. And the causal realm can be described as having intelligence and love, impersonal being, unity consciousness, and you can consciously create from there. Now we're going to come down to that 12.5% mind. And it is the mental and emotional filter. Now. The mental and emotional filter, they are designed to have the experience of subject, object, left and right. So, if we look at a human body, it has a right side and a left side, and that does not make it bad. But the human body without life cannot love. It needs life inside of it. It can't love. It's just a vessel. So that's where the unloving mind comes from. It doesn't have any love in it, but it is polarized. So there's nothing good and bad about the polarized mind. If we are functioning from intelligence and love, then this is where two beings come together and form oneness. So it's like having two halves of an apple and you bring them together. It's like unity, you unite them and it makes them into oneness. So the mental emotional filter is not a bad filter. It's not a filter that you must avoid. However, if we misuse it from the 12.5%, it can be really painful. It can be very fearful, because we can have emotions like anger, fear, judgment. In the mental body, the mental body can show pictures of harm and distress. So it can become quite severe. So if we are going to pick up the mental and emotional filter, establish yourself in the bliss and wisdom filter. And then this actually starts to follow the frequency of bliss and wisdom. Yeah, it's a very interesting game. So now I'm looking at the etheric filter, which is the breath, the energy body. So you've got the mental emotional filter, which is what we call thoughts and feelings. And then you've got the etheric filter, which is what we call the emotion, energy in motion. And the mental emotional, which is the mental and the emotional filter, which is thoughts and feelings. If there are thoughts of lack, then there'll be feelings of lack, and then they will create the energy of lack. And that's what happens. And like I said, if lack has become so normalized, if it becomes normal that you're always in lack, it doesn't feel, it just feels normal because we've been unconsciously accepting that frequency for so long. Then it would have to take a higher energy like gratitude, which will feel fake at first, but just ignore that fakeness. That's an invitation to say, stop doing it. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And you just keep doing it for, I don't know, a couple of weeks. Just be faithful. And then the frequency changes over to gratitude, and then the energy becomes gratitude, which is a higher energy, and then the experience changes. The human experience changes. This cannot be believed. I wouldn't even try to make anybody believe this. It can't be believed. It's not an easy thing to believe. So it's about trusting the process. Just take the steps, and then it will prove itself to itself. And then here we are, the physical body. So that is the final part of the filters. So the filters are bliss and wisdom. And then we've got the mental emotional, which is one filter. Then we've got the energy body, which is another filter. And then we've got the physical body. So the physical body is the last filter from awareness, aware of itself. Through the physical body, we can experience something that we call the world. There is one planet, but there are 8 billion worlds. We can call this the cosmos, and then our personal experience of the world is called aeon. This is why two people can be sat next to each other on a train. One can be having experiences of thoughts of distress, and the other one can be in heaven, feeling happy. And yet they're both in the same environment, both in the same world, both on the same planet, but they're in their own different aeon. So I've just picked 4 areas of life that we experience in the world. We've got the home, we've got health and fitness, we've got relationships, and then we've got finances. And so I'm just going to wrap this up, I'm going to very quickly go over why I do what I do, and what I cover in relation to the human experience. So here we go, part two. Health, vitality, and well-being. So I do have some people that come to me because they're having challenges with their health, not coming to me like a GP or a doctor. You know, if there's anything that needs to be looked at, then you need to follow that guideline and go and see your GP or go and see a healthcare professional. But people tend to come to me because they're feeling lethargic, they're feeling drained, they have got some health issues, they are on medication, or, you know, that they're speaking with health professionals, but there's just something, they just keep having a reoccurring ache and pain, and it's things that are um, 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 it's things like lack of sleep. Um, they know they can't sleep because there's thoughts that are coming in, and it's having a look at ways to improve health, how we can adjust lifestyle, but it's also ensuring that we are in, it's the alignment of who we are that must be off kilter. That is always the first thing that we look at, is to look at, are we aligned with our truth? And then we can filter down, and usually we can feel the bottleneck in the energy body and say, aha, there's trapped energy there. And then we look to let that go, and then it changes everything. Relationships is probably one of the most popular mini courses that I currently distribute. I do get a lot of people, and I think it's because I've been challenged so much with relationships, siblings, partner, children, grandchildren, colleagues, community, commuting. There's been a lot of challenges with relationships, and I knew that they wasn't personal. I just knew. I was like, this, you couldn't write this. And it was for me to see something different in each one. And so they were all valuable lessons. They wasn't taken personally. And relationships, and it's because with relationships we get to love each other. So there's so many different things that we can uncover with relationships, and how they affect our human experience. And then, of course, last but nowhere near least, is the finances. Um, Marrying spirituality to on the ground reality can be a bumpy ride for many. But when we realize that we are the attributeless being and there's nothing we can do to get there, there's no spiritual practices, but the byproduct of being who we are is a spiritual experience. It's easier to see the the denser realms, how to filter down so that that bill does get paid or that chore does get done. You know, it's easier to filter it down to the human body, to the world, and then to the areas such as health, relationships, and finances. And I always use the same method: knowledge, know thyself; wisdom, the application of knowledge, and you become enlightened. Enlightened is not some heightened big spiritual state. It means that you understand, because like I said, you cannot believe this. This is outside of believing. You can't believe that if I gave you an affirmation and asked you to repeat that affirmation 3 times a day, you wouldn't believe me, because it doesn't have any evidence. But when we know ourselves, and we know ourselves by contrast, and we've sat and rested with our true nature, and then we've experienced the arising of bliss, the arising of wisdom, we understand the 62.5% of the mind. This is positive, that's negative. When all of that starts to get established, because we've applied wisdom, then we do become enlightened. We say, oh, now I know why lack is appearing here. It's no longer there's something wrong with me, I need to do some spiritual exercise. No, you just take out the negative and you put the positive in. You just remove it. And that's what these online programs do. I think I've got some blurb about what they do going forward. I have indeed. So just to wrap this up then, so we've got non-conceptual being, which is the white background, and then there's a circle that illustrates the human mind. So we've got the human mind, which is the human intellect. Then through the human intellect, awareness can see bliss and wisdom, mental, emotional, and energy, physical forms, and the world. So it's like we peep through, we just peep in, because the ocean does not get involved with the fish. It's very present. The ocean doesn't get involved with anything that's in the ocean, but nothing can be there without the ocean. So, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, self-realization. It's to know thyself. Wisdom is the application of knowledge, the application of knowing yourself, and understanding brings enlightened and awakening. So we can have lots of mini awakenings like, oh my God, I get it now. That's because you know thyself, you apply what you know, which is wisdom, and then you'll be like, oh God, I get it. Oh, that person was right. So you no longer believe the thoughts of lack and limitation. You just stop believing them. We don't have to unpack hundreds and thousands of thoughts, but you just stop believing them. You're like, I don't have to believe that. And it's what happens when you establish a higher frequency. So I know on the Alchemist Hero website, there are different courses, different online programs, but the foundation of all of them is knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Once that has been understood, once that has been accepted, then the integration, it's integrating it, which is filtering of intelligence and love into impersonal being, which then results as embodiment, which is authentic and grounded truth having a human experience. We are all this anyway, but we've just got some blocks and things in the way, just some tiny little things that just need aligning. So I use one method for real wealth: knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and it is used to align health, vitality, and well-being, harmonious and peaceful relationships, and financial freedom with the truth of who we are. I really do hope that you understand what has been said in this presentation. I hope that you understand it. I hope that you get what I'm saying, because if you get it, it's just a straightening up of the path. That's all that it is. So this is kind of the foundation video to all of the online programs that I offer. And they're all under Alchemist Hero, as you can see here. Please feel free to visit the website. This online program, or the online programs that I have put together for this particular website, I've simplified them without shortcutting them, and they give you freedom. You know, attributeless being doesn't need freedom. It doesn't know nothing about freedom, but awareness, being aware of itself over being aware of unlove, fear. Oh my God, it is freedom from all of those programs that are not very loving, without having an aversion to them, without kicking them away. It's a very loving dance. It's very, very loving, these dances. And we'll see that when we see our true nature and we see that we know ourselves by contrast. Apologies for any aeroplanes that have gone over the house while I've been recording. They tend to come over every 2 minutes at this time. But I just want to say thank you so much for watching. please visit the website Alchemist Hero, or if you want to look at what I do on my other side, there's also the books rather, talking cards. I'm hoping to post some videos up of following the cast as they make the film Trapped by the Devil. Or you may be also in the spiritual field and in the care and support industry, or you may have a loved one. I will be, if I haven't already, be posting a lot of free stuff on that platform so that you can help your loved ones if they're going through mental health or if they're going through addiction or anything like that. All right then, so thank you so much for watching. I have gone over the 30-minute mark, but this is like a mini masterclass. It's just broke everything down and explained it really simple. So yeah, thank you so much, and I will be back again soon. Thank you.